And it was just another day, yeah.
Just another day.
Until I went to the movies, and now it's a movie Chewsday. A movie Chewsday. Until a movie Chewsday.
Hello, and welcome to Movie Chewsday, where I give an in-depth discussion of movies, spoiler-free. Talk about the movie news, and we talk about movie trailers, and in not that particular order. So, right off the bat, I am on Puppy Watch. I have not been on Puppy Watch in a minute, but I'm back on it. No, this is not Bastion. This is his sister Breezy, and she is very restless, and I am hoping that she will wear herself out pretty soon. So there will be a lot of background noise because I'm sure she's gonna be tussling around with her brother as soon as I lay her down. So there's that. So I apologize in advance for all that. Without further ado, let's get to the news, shall we? First up, Sir Roger Moore passes away at the age of 89. This kid sent out a tweet, said that he lost a brave but short battle to cancer. So that is very, very horrible news, very huge loss, because you know, at 89 years old, man, I feel like he probably could have went even longer if he didn't have to deal with the whole cancer situation. So that's really horrible news to hear. So thoughts and prayers go out to his friends and family. I only know him as James Bond. But I guess he started out in television playing in Maverick and what else he playing? The Saint and the Persuaders, which I've never heard of. I've heard the other two, but I haven't heard of the Persuaders. So I'm just gonna go and take a wild guess and say that that's probably a show that was over in the UK. So like my thing with Roger Moore, like the funny thing about Roger Moore is that or actually I should say Sir Roger Moore, because apparently he was knighted for being a peace ambassador. So that's pretty awesome. But the funny thing about Roger Moore with me is that I didn't start out as a fan of him as James Bond. So here's the thing. So, if memory serves me correct, my first Bond movie that I watched was License to Kill with my sister. And, cause she used to watch that movie a lot, so I ended up watching it with her and ended up falling in love with it. And then, she had found the Living Daylights, which was the next movie that Timothy Dalton was in as Bond. So we watched that. And my mom, who's a big James Bond fan, had me start it started with License to Kill. I watched The Living Daylights, and then I somehow watched, my mom had me watch, I want to say it was A Spy Who Loved Me, because she wanted me to see the submarine car, and I'm pretty sure that was the movie that car was in. So she wanted me to see that car. I looked at it and I was like, oh man, it's so cool. It's a car that can swim underwater, you know? So I was like very impressed with that in my youth. And I saw Roger Moore and I was like, who's that old guy? And she was like, that's James Bond. And I was like, what? I was like, this guy is James Bond? You know, because I'm used to seeing Timothy Dalton, right? So I wasn't really like impressed with him because I had finished watching the movie and I was just like, I don't know how I feel about this guy being James Bond. He just doesn't seem to fit the mold, you know. But then like shortly after that, there was like a marathon for Bond movies, and I think it was on TBS. It was some network that used to do the Bond marathons around Christmas time. And this was when they actually showed all the Bond movies, like leading up to whatever the most recent one was. They still do the marathon stuff now, but they don't like show every single movie. They just show like a select few. But at this time, they were showing like all the movies. So I ended up sitting down watching all of them, right? So I started out with Connery and worked my way up to, I think at that time, like Pierce Brosnan had just started. So like probably started from Dr. No and worked my way all the way up to GoldenEye. So watching it, sitting down, watching that marathon, like just like movies back to back to back, like I ended up like watching more of the movies that Roger Moore did, and then I would say, I would want to say, was it Moonraker? I'd say like about like by Moonraker, I was like, you know what, I'm feeling this guy. You know, he's a little bit too rough with the ladies. You know, I think he was slapping them around a lot more than Connery was, but by like Moonraker, Roger Moore had grew on me, so I was down for him being Bond at that time. He's not my favorite Bond. My favorite Bond till this day is still Pierce Brosnan, but I still liked I liked Moore. He eventually grew on me after a while, so I was very impressed with his performances over the movies that he's done. I think till this day he's probably the one Bond. I think he's probably still holds the record as doing the most Bond movies. So that's pretty impressive. So yeah, man, like I said, just you know, shout out to the Moore family, the Moore residents. You know, appreciate the service that you put on, and just know that he's in a better place. That's how we can get through all this tragedy. So there you go. So sticking with the whole tragedy topic, and I'm sorry to start off dark, but gotta address this stuff and kind of pay our respects and all. So Zack Snyder steps down from the Justice League movie due to a family tragedy. The family tragedy being that his daughter had committed suicide. And he and his wife are going to like step away from the Justice League movie, and they're going to bring in Josh Whedon to like put the finishing touches on it and get it ready for release later this year in November. So the crazy thing about this story, besides the whole act of suicide, is the fact that this incident happened back in March, and we are currently in the month of May, like near the end of the month of May. So it's crazy to me to think that this tragedy has happened to him and his family, and the fact that he was able to gather up all the willpower to continue on with this project that so many people have just like way over the top expectations for with this whole movie. You know, he's got to deal with the whole hate mail and all the criticism that people keep giving him, telling him to like, you know, stop making DC movies and stop ruining their childhood and all this other bullshit. Like, he had to power through all that stuff to continue to make this movie. And he is just now like stepping away from it to like go and be with his family and stuff, and go through the whole like grieving process and everything, and deal with this loss that they recently had. So that to me is crazy. I've heard of like deaths happening on the set of movies, and I always wondered how directors and filmmakers and the rest of the crew can just like deal with that whole situation and be able to move past it to still work on the movie. It's even crazier to think how this man was able to muster up all of the willpower in the world to continue to do this project, this huge project, after like suffering the loss of his daughter, you know, in the way that, you know, she had left this world. Like that's crazy for me to think about. I've always been a Zack Snyder fan. I've always had a lot of respect for that man, but my respect for the man just goes through the roof now hearing about this whole ordeal. Like, it's crazy. And you know, I feel bad for him, dude. I feel bad that this happened to him. So, you know, my condolences go out to the Snyders and the Webb family. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing his ex-wife's last name right, Denise. It's Webe. So I want to say Webbe, but I'm gonna take a stab and just say that it's pronounced Webb. So, or maybe it's Weeb. No, it's Webb. It's got to be Webb. Whatever. Thoughts and prayers go out to you. My condolences. I am very sorry for your loss. Getting to the Justice League situation, Joss Whedon taking over is a good get. You know, this is the guy that did the 2 Avengers movies, you know, so he's obviously got some background in dealing with a vast variety of characters on one screen. As far as us seeing like any of his hands-on impressions or any kind of like if we sit down and watch Justice League, I don't know if we're going to see any Whedonisms. I mean, I guess we might with the additional scenes, because I know that there was additional scenes that Snyder wanted to do for the movie, and he had actually contacted Whedon to write those scenes, and now I guess Whedon is actually going to direct those scenes as well as deal with other post-production things of the movie. But I feel like the movie overall is still going to have Snyder's touch. It's still going to have like the tone that he was going for. It's going to have his original vision. I feel like I don't think you're going to see a lot of Whedon in this movie. I just feel like it's too far along for him to like insert any kind of like major changes to it that would make us like look at it and be like, oh yeah, that was Whedon. You know what I mean? So I don't think we're gonna see any of that. But yeah, man, that's crazy. Zack Snyder, like I said, I've been a fan of his since Dawn of the Dead, and I feel like he's been on a streak with movies ever since. With the one hiccup in his career being Batman v Superman. All in all, dude, I think like that guy gets way too much hate than he deserves. I'm not saying that his movies are perfect, but I do like them for the most part. I've said numerous times, and I'll say it even now, Batman v Superman isn't a perfect movie, but it's definitely not as bad as everybody makes it out to be. Like, I think it is still watchable, even with the mistakes that that movie has. Every now and then it comes on cable, and I always find myself just like turning to it and watching it, you know, just for shits and giggles, you know. Like, I'm just like, this movie is watchable. Like, there are some problems here, but it's not unwatchable, you know. And I think with all the hate that Snyder gets, dude, I just think that people need to be giving him a lot more respect than that he deserves, actually. Like, when you really think about his career, it's like, who was touching Superman after Superman Returns? Which, to this day, and I have seen this movie numerous times in recent years, and that is still a bad movie. The only good thing about Superman Returns is Brandon Roth, but other than that, Superman Returns was a bad movie. And after that movie, and maybe I could be wrong, but I remember nobody wanted to touch that franchise or that character after that movie did what it did, you know. And Zack Snyder was the guy to come through and actually take the reins and be like, I got an idea for a Superman movie, and he did it, you know. And I actually ended up liking that movie like way more than I anticipated, because if anybody knows me, they know that I fucking hate Superman. I cannot stand that character. He is the definition of OP. He is a boring character, and I feel like Snyder and Nolan came through and actually humanized him and made him like a tolerable character for me to enjoy on the screen. So, you know, like I was saying, like after Superman Returns, I feel like nobody was trying to touch Superman, but Zack Snyder was the one who had the balls to do it. And he did it again with Batman, where after Nolan had finished up the whole Dark Knight trilogy, I feel like nobody wanted to touch Batman. Not because that was a bad trilogy of movies. I think it was that Nolan did such a good job on Batman that I feel like anyone who had an idea for a Batman movie probably like just didn't want to touch it because they knew that their movie would be directly compared to what Nolan had did. So I feel like nobody wanted to touch the Batman franchise as well. But once again, Zack Snyder stepped up and was like, I'm making a Batman movie, you know, because make no mistake, Batman v Superman is a Batman movie first and foremost. And so like, yeah, man, he got the ball, or he had the balls to get the ball rolling to get those movies done. And then he decided to go one step further and actually take the whole DC cinematic universe and put that on his back and get that whole ball rolling for the WB. And I do stand by the fact that, I stand by the claim that I made where I don't think DC should have went the route that Marvel went down and that other studios are trying to go down, where they have this whole shared universe stuff. I still don't agree with them doing that, but it's been done. They're in the middle of doing it. Yes, it's on shaky ground, but either way, like the dies are being cast and the movies are getting made. Some are kind of like in limbo here and there, but for the most part, as far as I know, they're still getting made. And I feel like a lot of things has to go to Snyder for like actually taking on that responsibility to do it, because who the fuck else was trying to do it before Zack Snyder? You know what I mean? I feel like he has opened the door for a lot more directors and producers and writers to like come through and be like, yeah, man, like I want a piece of this DC, you know, I want to get on this DC train that everybody else is doing, you know, I want to get to where Marvel is, you know, and stuff like that. And I think, you know, you got to give a lot of thanks to Zack Snyder, dude. Like, he's a ballsy director, and I really appreciate the work he's done. I really appreciate the career that he's had, and I hope his career continues to soar as we go forward. So that's all I really just want to get across, dude, is just like anybody out there who's hating on Zack Snyder, dude, I think they need to give him a little bit more respect and actually like thank him for better or worse, however the DC universe is doing cinematically. Like, you still need to give thanks to him for actually like getting the ball rolling and at least like getting other filmmakers out there to get their balls to drop and actually tackle some DC properties, you know. So that's really all I'm trying to get at. But all in all, man, like I hope things get better somehow for him and his family. I know that I read that his daughter, I guess before she like took her life, had wrote a science fiction novel, and Zack Snyder and his wife are working on getting that book published eventually. I hope that they could possibly take that a step further and actually get it turned into a movie. So, you know, I hope that they could do that as a kind of a send off to their daughter and all. But yeah, man, just like once again, thoughts and prayers go out to their whole family. So yeah, that's some crazy shit. But moving on to the next news story, staying in the superhero realm, sort of. Tom Holland, aka Spider-Man, aka Peter Parker, will be playing young Nathan Drake in the Uncharted movie. So I'm gonna take this with a grain of salt. One, this movie has been talked about for a long time. I want to say that we're probably approaching a decade for talks of an Uncharted movie happening, and it still has not happened. Another reason why I want to take it with a grain of salt is that Tom Holland's got a lot of shit on his plate. I mean, just being associated in the Marvel universe, and then him possibly even double dipping with the whole Sony Pictures type thing going on. Like, he's got a lot of shit on his plate, so he's gonna have a busy schedule. So there's a possibility that this Uncharted movie still might not happen anytime soon. I want to say, like, at the very least, this movie is at least 2 years away from going into production. But I could be wrong. I don't know, but whatever. Grain of salt. That being said, I never thought ever that they would, like, when they announced an Uncharted movie, I never thought to do or to have the movie focus on young Nathan Drake. That's actually a fantastic idea that they've come up with, because if you go back some episodes where I first started talking about them, you know, I think when they had found like a director or whatever for the movie, one of my biggest concerns for the Uncharted movie was that there's already a Tomb Raider movie, a Tomb Raider reboot movie that's like being made as we speak. And my fear was that if they did an Uncharted movie, that it was like, what would be the point of doing an Uncharted movie when you're already doing a Tomb Raider movie? Because those characters are generally the same type of character, where it's like they're just a bunch of treasure hunters globetrotting around the world, you know, dodging traps and rival treasure hunters or evil corporations to get artifacts or whatever like that. So I was like, you know, when I heard that they were doing a Tomb Raider reboot, I was like, okay, like there is no need for an Uncharted movie, because they're kind of just gonna like butt heads together. But them focusing on Nathan Drake is actually a really good idea, because you can still do the globetrotting, even though it's going to be like young Nathan Drake. I would assume that they're going to have it where he teams up with Sully, where like him and Sully first meet. So with Drake kind of like being on his own in the streets, that opens up the opportunity for him to just travel around the world with Sully. And they can, instead of like, you know, raiding tombs or whatever, or like old ancient civilizations, they can just stick to like more metro areas where they can like actually break into buildings. So that way it actually becomes a heist movie. So they could do stuff like that. And that will separate it from the globetrotting that Tomb Raider does, where she goes into ancient civilizations and castles or whatever, underground catacombs to get treasure. Like he'll just be sneaking into museums or, you know, somebody's house to get some shit. So this is actually a really good idea. I hope that like that is the actual like focus of the movie, is to just have it focus on young Drake and not do an Uncharted 3 where it's like Tom Holland's playing young Drake, but then the movie shifts over to Mark Wahlberg or whoever the hell they get to play a more mature Drake, you know, and it kind of like jumps back and forth. Like hopefully they just keep it focused on young Drake. So far, this sounds like a really good idea. I now have more excitement for this movie going forward, but like I said, I'm taking it with a grain of salt. And I mean, I need more information to happen as far as like this movie going into production and not just something that's being talked about. So there's that. Next news story, sticking with people named Tom. I know it's kind of a stretch for, you know, segues, but Tom Hardy has been cast as Venom in the upcoming Venom movie. So all we know right now is that Tom Hardy is playing Eddie Brock / Venom. Ruben Fleischer, the director of Zombieland, is going to be directing the movie. They're still sticking with the whole sci-fi horror theme for the movie overall. And it's not going to be tied into the MCU. This is going to be something completely separate from what Marvel Studios is doing with their whole jubilee of movies. This movie is going to like kickstart the whole Sony Marvel Cinematic Universe. So with that, that's like all the information that I have on this whole thing. So, and they're still talking about doing the whole October 5th, 2018 release for the movie. So with all that, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. I am not a Venom fan. I don't really give two shits about that character, but if Tom Hardy's in, I'm in. I am now like interested in this movie going forward. But just like the whole thing with Tom Holland, I want to take this with a grain of salt because I'm still waiting to hear some updated news on the Splinter Cell movie that Tom Hardy was also supposed to be starring in as Sam Fisher, I'm pretty sure. And I have not heard anything about that movie, so I'm just going to assume that that's over in the dumpster somewhere, you know, that they probably like shot it in the dumpster after that whole debacle with the Assassin's Creed movie, but who knows. But Tom Hardy being involved is I'm all about that, dude. I feel like he is the type of actor where he's going to take a role either because he's a huge fan, like maybe he's a huge Venom fan, I don't know, or I strike him as an actor where if he reads a good script or if he sees like a good storyboard or just like a rough draft of something, like if they pitch the movie to him right, like he's all about it. Like I can imagine him like just reading the rough draft of a script for a Venom movie and he's just like, I have a use for you. So, you know, that's good news. I'm all about Tom Hardy in anything, you know. Not that like every movie that he's in is great, but you know, the majority of the movies that Tom Hardy does are just I enjoy a lot. So there you go. Moving on to the last bit of news, kind of a bit of a last minute entry that I did, but I found it to tickle my fancy. The Resident Evil film franchise is getting rebooted. So saw that coming a mile away. No news yet on like who's directing it or who's going to star in it. All we know is that Constantine Films is the production company behind it, and that so far they're looking at James Wan to produce the movie. So that tells me that they're probably trying to go more towards like the sinister horror realm this go around. But that's all the news we have for it. Why they are just now talking about this at this moment in time, I have no idea. You would think that it's to promote the whole Resident Evil, the final chapter coming out on video recently. But this is honestly a slap to the face to Paul W.S. Anderson and to Mila Jovovich, you know, and all the hard work that they did with the original franchise for Resident Evil in films. It just seems kind of weird for them to put this news out there and they don't even have any like real concrete information to give anybody. Like they're just kind of like keeping it close to the chest, and I'm just like, then why even announce that right now? I mean, like the last movie for the original franchise is barely out on video and you're already like getting people psyched up for a reboot. It's like, it's kind of crazy that they would do that. As far as like what I expect from this dude, I feel like, honestly, I feel like they can just, they you know, they already do the CG Resident Evil movies that are more closely tied to the games. So if it were up to me, I would just go like the Square Enix route and just dump a shitload of money into the CG effects and just do a complete CG Resident Evil movie that ties into like the games and stuff. That would be what I would do, but obviously that probably won't happen, especially since they're already doing the CG type movies. I don't know if they want to put any more money into those, but since they wouldn't do that, I would just say with the last franchise, you went completely the complete opposite direction from what the games had done with their whole convoluted story and did your own convoluted story. I think this time you should like try and keep it as close to the games as possible. Like I said before, like if you're going to make a movie based off of a video game, I don't know why they just don't take the story from the game and just put it straight to the movie like they do with novel-based movies. So I would hope that they do that. Like I said, they got James Wan in there already. I mean, he has done action with the whole Fast and Furious, or was it the Furious 7? But he's predominantly known as the horror guy, the guy who's kind of like brought horror back to like scaring the shit out of people. So I would assume that this movie is gonna like veer more towards being like horror focused. So that's a good assumption to have. I'm hoping that I'm right about that. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what they could do. I mean, I knew that they would end up rebooting it because, like I said, the original franchise made them a shitload of money. So why wouldn't they make another like franchise of Resident Evil movies, you know? So but like I said, dude, just putting this news out there without any like really in-depth like you know, description of what they plan to do with the franchise moving forward is kind of a slap to the face of the original franchise that made them billions of dollars. So, you know, that's my 2 cents on the matter. But all in all, that's the news for this week. I'd like to give props because I forgot to give out some credits, you know, to the whole news with Roger Moore. Like, shout out to Hollywood Reporter for that's where I found that. Shout out to IGN with the Zack Snyder news. Shout out to PS I Love You, who recently just did their last episode, which is it's a damn shame. But shout out to them for, you know, giving me the scoop or giving me the info on the whole Tom Holland playing young Nathan Drake. And shout out to IGN for the Tom Hardy Venom news and the whole Resident Evil being rebooted news. So there you go. Credit where credit's due, man. That's what this shit is about this week. Okay? That might even be the title of the show. Now it's time to get into the trailers. Trailers. Oh yeah. Sunday. Okay. Or Tuesday. First up is War Machine. This is a Netflix original. Marvel is at it again. Don Cheadle is back to reprise his role as James Rhodes, aka War Machine, and he is on a warpath, looking for Vision, trying to get revenge on what he did in Civil War, fucking up the nerves in his spine, and making it so that he can't walk anymore, or is just like so paralyzed. No, I'm just playing. That's not what it is. That is what I thought about when I saw the title for War Machine, but no, you know, I was making my rounds online and I saw this advertisement and of a person who looked like Brad Pitt, and I was like, is that Brad Pitt? And then I realized it was Brad Pitt when I went in for a closer look. And he's in a Netflix original movie titled War Space Machine. Not War Space Machine, it's War Machine, but it's got a space in between. It's not one word. So yeah, so Brad Pitt's in it. I forgot who else was in it. It's actually like a pretty decent cast. Just can't remember like the names of everyone in there. I know I saw Topher Grace in there, and my boy was his name, Keith Litchfield. He's also in it as well. So yeah, it looks like it's gonna be a dramedy, and it's gonna deal with the whole, like, I guess like Brad Pitt is some kind of general, or he's in some kind of high ranking position in the army, and they're like over in Iraq doing the Iraq war stuff. This is all stuff that goes over my head. Like, you know, all the things with war and politics and all that, it all just goes over my head. But this is why I watch these type of movies, so I can get up to date on what's going on. I don't know if it takes, or like if it's based off a true story or anything. I just know that it's kind of like a comedic / drama type movie where they're going to talk about, hopefully, how politics happens in the middle of war times, and, you know, the different strings that get pulled by the man while the soldiers are boots on the ground, putting their lives on the line for a war in the land maybe that they shouldn't be in, or, you know, fighting for our freedoms so we can sit in front of cameras and tell you about the news and trailers and movies that have come out in the past week or two. So, yeah. So, definitely want to check it out. It's a Netflix movie, so it's on Netflix. It's got Brad Pitt. I have Netflix. I love Brad Pitt. And honestly, I want to do my part and support these movies when I can, because I am still on that train of trying to get movies to like skip theaters and just go straight to the homes, because the theaters refuse to do anything about bullshit people who ruin the theater experience for people like me. So, you know, I'm fighting the good fight on trying to get these movies to come straight to our homes and into our eyeballs, so that movie theaters can learn their lesson and take action against all these douchebags and their douchebag friends and their douchebag significant others. So there is that. Which brings us to, that comes out May 26th. See, I remember this time, okay? May 26th is when it will be live on Netflix for us all to watch. So probably look forward to me talking about that movie in a future Movie Chewsday. Going on to the next movie, War of the Planet of the Apes. Now, here's the thing. I know last week I was talking about how I was starting to kind of like run out of movie trailers to talk about, because I pretty much talked about all of them, so I was going to have to start like doubling up. Well, apparently there was a trailer that slipped through the cracks, and it was War of the Planet of the Apes. I've seen that trailer for this movie numerous times. I've seen numerous trailers, and one of the reasons that I probably forget to talk about it is because I don't give a shit about the Planet of the Apes franchise. I never have. Even the Mark Wahlberg movie that they did, like I remember thinking that movie was okay. It was decent. I really liked the effects and stuff that they used, the costumes and makeup effects that they had to make people look like apes and all that. Like I was very impressed with that, but at the same time, I still did not care about that franchise as a whole. And these movies are no different. These updated movies. I watched the first Planet of the Apes, whatever the fuck it was called. I think it was called something else. Was it Rise or... No, wait, that was the second one. Was it Dawn? Dawn of the Planet of the Apes? I don't know. But whatever the one was with James Franco that started the whole apes taking over the world thing, I watched that one. And just like the Mark Wahlberg movie, I was impressed with the effects and how real the apes looked at the time and the whole motion capture and all that. I was impressed with all that stuff, with how far technology had came. But once again, I was just like, I don't care. And that went into the second movie to where I didn't even watch the second movie. It did not tickle my fancy. I watched numerous trailers on it, and none of the trailers helped or had me or get me anywhere interested in wanting to see it. And then they started doing the trailers for the third movie, the movie that's about to come out on July 14th. See, I got the dates here. You know, I'm doing it, man. I'm doing my part. But started watching the trailers for that, and I'm not gonna lie, dude. Like, it wasn't until I think it was the second trailer that showed Woody Harrelson that showed that he was gonna be in the movie. And when I saw him, I was like, there was like a brief moment in the theater where I was like, you know what? I might have to go see this movie, which means that I might have to go back and watch the second movie so I can be prepared for this movie. And so, like, there was a brief moment where I was interested, right? Because, you know, I love me some Woody Harrelson. So, you know, I was all like kind of getting myself psyched up a little bit. But then recently I watched the trailer, like the latest trailer that they show. So I think this is like trailer number 3 or number 4 or whatever. And naturally they show like even more of the movie, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the trailer and I'm just like, yeah, you know what? I'm back to not giving a shit about whether I see this movie or not now, you know? And it's times like these where I appreciate just being a nobody who just like watches whatever movie that he wants and can just talk about whatever movie he wants, and I don't have to like go and see movies like War of the Planet of the Apes or Beauty and the Beast, you know, that I have no interest in seeing, you know, unless of course somebody were to come through and maybe leave a comment and be like, hey man, you should go check out this movie because I thought it was great and I want to hear what you think about it, you know, but nobody's doing that, so I don't have to do it. So yeah, man, I am back to not giving a shit about the Planet of the Apes movies. Once again, the visual effects and stuff, like it's looks great. Like those apes look real. I'm very impressed, but at the same time, just have no interest whatsoever in seeing this movie. But I do like the line where they use where like, we will be in a planet of apes. Like I thought that was great. I found that very amusing. But yeah, man, once again, like trailers just come through and ruin the day. If you ever get time, go on the internet and look for a article. It's titled, I think the title is "Our Obsession with Trailers is Making Movies Worse." And it is an article by a man named David Priest. And he pretty much hits the same points that I had brought up way back. I think it was like episode 18 of Movie Chewsday, where he just kind of talks about how trailers were back in the day and compares them to how they are today, where they pretty much show you the movie and they show you enough to where you kind of don't even want to see the movie. And that is exactly what happened with this War of the Planet of the Apes trailers, where like I've seen so many, dude. Like I feel like I've seen enough of that movie to where I'm just like, yeah, no interest whatsoever. And that's like why I'm at this mode in my life, man, or this phase in my life where, in fact, it's not even a phase. It's just I'm at this point in my life where I don't want to see trailers anymore, dude. Like I'll watch a teaser. I'll watch maybe like the early trailers where like hopefully they don't show too much of the movie, but after that I'm out, dude. Like I don't want to see anymore because I feel like they're ruining movies. And it's even getting to the point now where like I gotta wear headphones when I'm in the theater now when they're showing these trailers because I can still hear what's going on. Like recently with the Spider-Man trailer, Spider-Man Homecoming, not the first trailer, but the second trailer, which I would assume is like, it has to be like 3 or 4 minutes long, dude. It's a long ass trailer. And I could like hear what was going on in the movie. And I just heard how they just pretty much gave you all the story beats of what was going to happen in the movie. And that is another thing that this David Priest guy touches on in his article, is he's just like, he watched the trailer for Spider-Man Homecoming. And he pretty much had got to the point where he was like, dude, I don't even want to see this movie anymore because I feel like I know how it's going to turn out and there's not really going to be any surprises for me to really enjoy the movie now. So I'm checking out. And I completely understand what he was trying to say, because I go through that every now and then when I look at trailers for movies that I have no interest in and they just show so much and I'm just like, I can wait, or I can never see that. So yeah, man, that's about it for the trailers. I'm sorry for going on that rant there. You know how I am with my trailers, dude. I'm just so disgusted with the movie industry these days. But moving on, dude. Moving on to the bread and butter. It's time. Oh, is it time to talk about that movie? The movie of the week. Alien Covenant. So, this movie is going to be a little tricky to talk about, because while watching it, I was like, it was kind of one of those movies where I was just sitting there just watching things happen on screen. There wasn't really a lot of times where I got a lot of reaction coming out of it. But by the end of the movie, by the time like the movie ended and I got to my car and I kind of like just thought about what I had watched on screen, I was just kind of like, you know, the movie was better than Prometheus. Like, I feel it was a lot better. It flowed a lot better than Prometheus did, but it was still just an okay movie. It wasn't like oh my god, it was so great. Like, I didn't have that feeling when I walked out of the movie. It was like more of a feeling of confusion when the credits started rolling, and that's a really bad situation to be in. You know, I feel like you want people to walk out of the theater satisfied when the credits start rolling, and to have them walk out kind of confused is kind of bad, you know. So basically, like, my gripe with the film is that, you know, because like I said, you kind of walk out a little confused and not really knowing what's going on. The confusion comes from what exactly these movies are about. These movies being the prequel movies to the Alien franchise as already established. Because I was under the impression that when Ridley Scott had like went back to this whole franchise and did Prometheus and stuff like that, I was under the impression that he was trying to explain the origins of the alien species that is the xenomorphs from the established Alien movies, you know. I figured he was going to get into like where they came from, which I was excited for, because I do remember watching the Alien movies as a kid, and I did have that random thought of, you know, like, they are aliens. Are you telling me that there's a planet where there's just a whole shitload of these things running around, like, killing each other and dumping acid all over each other, you know? And I feel like Prometheus did explain that per se, you know? And the thing with Covenant is that I feel like Covenant kind of retells the same story that Prometheus already did. You know, in Prometheus, we find out that the xenomorphs are pretty much just a biological weapon that was developed by another alien race that has a DNA trait that's similar to us humans. And I feel like in Alien Covenant, they just kind of like retread that same thing, you know, like when they're sitting there explaining like the plot of the movie, I'm just kind of sitting and watching. I'm just like, we already know this. Like, I already know how xenomorphs work, you know, like, you know how xenomorphs work just from watching, you know, past Alien films that have already been done, you know, like, I want to more get into the explanation of who the engineers are as a race, which is something that I feel Prometheus didn't do. I want to get into like what that race is and why they created the black ooze that is the precursor to the xenomorph. I want to know like why they did it and actually like how it was created, you know? And I feel like those questions still haven't been answered for me, unless of course I missed something. Keep in mind that I've only seen Prometheus once, and I keep on talking about Prometheus, but you know, I mean, I'm still talking about Covenant. But the problem is that I feel like if the thing with Covenant is, if Covenant didn't continue where Prometheus left off, I would have just assumed that Covenant was a way for Ridley Scott to kind of like erase Prometheus, because like I said, it kind of just retell the same story with new characters. But yeah, so like that's like a long-winded explanation of my first gripe. My second gripe is the fucking characters are dumb again. Not all of them, but the majority of them are idiots. So once again, going back to Prometheus, they use the handicap of, or they use the excuse of, well, they're scientists, you know, you know, they're very curious about the foreign land that they're on and the foreign objects that they run into, so they have a willingness to explore and investigate and see like what exactly this black ooze is that seeps into their skin and a fucking alien pops out later, you know. So that was like Prometheus's explanation for why their characters were so dumb. In Covenant, their excuse is, well, they're married, so, you know, that's why they end up getting into these situations that are pretty much irrational, you know. So and honestly, like, I feel like that's a horrible excuse to use. I mean, it makes it a little bit more logical for the situations that they get into, but at the end of the day, I still see it as a cheap way to set up a scene for somebody to like do something idiotic, you know. Sticking with the characters as well, is just I feel like there weren't a lot of interesting characters in this movie, you know, outside of the characters Michael Fassbender plays. I mean, like, there's not really that many interesting characters in the movies. I just see the majority of these characters as red shirts, you know, people that are gonna die, people that are gonna get brutalized by these aliens running around on the planet and spaceships, you know. And so that sucks, you know. I feel like Ridley or the filmmakers thought that if we just like acknowledge that these characters are married or that they're in a clique of security officials or military troops or whatever, that people can understand that, you know, they're close and they have an established relationship, and it'll make them gravitate to them more as characters. But I'm like, nope, that didn't work with me, you know. Like, I found the character of David, and I forgot what the other character was that Fassbender played, but I found those characters to be interesting because, you know, we're dealing with AI and how, you know, their whole process of thinking works and their view of the world or their outlook on human life. Like, I'm interested in that, and thanks to Fassbender's performance, like that, I think that helped a lot as well. As far as like on the human side, people that aren't androids, the standout character for me, the only standout character, was Danny McBride's character, Tennessee, which was actually a huge surprise because when I found out Danny McBride was going to be in the movie, I was going in there expecting to just see Danny McBride do what Danny McBride does best, which is be Danny McBride with all kind of like quips and stuff like that. And I mean, he has them a little bit, but I feel like he holds back in this movie a lot, and he's kind of like really low key. He just plays it real mellow, which I thought fit the movie really well. And whenever the time came for him to like get emotional and sell you on the emotion that he's going through, I thought he did a fantastic job on that. So like, his range as an actor just opened up a lot for me now. Now I won't assume the usual when I see Danny McBride in the movie, unless it's a comedic movie. But like when it comes to like a drama movie, like, he's up there with John C. Reilly now, as far as I'm concerned. So but yeah, but all the other characters, dude, like, they were just cannon fodder, you know. Some of them died in like logical ways where it's like they couldn't help it, you know, in the situation that they were in, which was kind of like amplified the scene where I was just like, man, that's fucked up that happened to them, you know. But eventually, like, that's like in the early stages of the movie. Eventually, I would say like around the second act, they go right back to the territory of, oh, what's that over there? I'm just gonna go off by myself, even though everybody's dying around me. I'm just gonna go off by myself and see what this is all about. It's just like, it was aggravating, dude. Like, it really pissed me off. But other than that, dude, that's all I can say about the movie. I mean, it sounds like I didn't like it, but I mean, it's not, man, like I said, dude, it's really tricky. It's not that I didn't like the movie, I just wasn't that impressed with the movie. It's watchable, but overall, I would definitely not recommend going to see it in theaters. I would say that this is one of those movies that you can wait till it comes out on cable or video and give it a rent and check it out then. Because if you're like me, I would say if you're like me and you're a fan of the Alien franchise and you were intrigued at the idea of trying to find out the origins of like the xenomorphs, I don't think you're going to get it here. And like I said, I left the theater confused because my biggest question walking out of this movie and knowing that Ridley Scott has like 2 or 3 more in the pipeline and that he wants to like get the ball rolling on those as soon as possible, my big question at the end is that, are we trying to explain the origins of the xenomorphs, or are we trying to just bridge the gap between Prometheus and Alien? So, and right now, I feel like it's the latter of the two. I feel like he's more trying to just bridge a gap. The origins of the xenomorph have been explained in Prometheus, but like I said, I feel like they didn't go as in depth as I would have liked them to. So there's that. But I don't know, dude. Like, I mean, as far as like things that I liked about the movie, I did like the soundtrack, I like the soundtrack of the movie. I thought they did some interesting things with the music and the ambient sounds. I like the set choices. I like the locations that they picked for like when they were on the planet that they had landed on. I like the overall set design of not exactly how the spaceships looked, but just like the settings of the interior of the spaceships looked real, you know, like they looked gritty, you know, they look like gritty people. Usually when you see like space movies, everybody's got like these clean suits on and stuff and they're all clean cut. Like there's people with like just scruffy ass beards and shit. They look all sweaty and everything. And I was just like, Jesus. I was like, space travel, this must be what space travel really looks like, you know, just people just in these small enclosed corridors and stuff like that. So, but yeah, man, I don't know, like this movie's kind of a smorgasbord of all Alien movies put together. You know, you got a little bit of Prometheus in there, you know, you got Alien in there, you got a little snippets of Aliens in the movie, you know, little callbacks to that. So, but I don't know, the movie kind of, I say like the first half of the movie kind of like starts out like Prometheus, and then the second half it just turns into an Alien movie, like full blown Alien movie. So that's about all I got, man. You know, like I said, I can't recommend going to see this movie in theaters, and it's a shame to say that, but you know, I guess that's just how shit goes. You know, you can't knock them all out of the park. So better luck next time, Ridley Scott and crew. That's about it, man. You know, if you guys got some suggestions for movies that you want me to watch, or you know, you want to give your 1s and 2s on what I thought about the movies or whatever the hell else I talked about in this video, you can hit me up on Twitter at the Chewels. You can check out weird pictures that I take on Instagram at ChewVision. And you can email me at chewels85@gmail.com. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and call it a day or call it a night, whatever. One more thing. I mean, I'm sorry I had to start it off all dark, and I'm sorry that I'm about to end it dark, but I did read about the incident that happened over in Manchester. So thoughts and prayers go out to friends and family who were like somehow involved in that incident. Like, really sorry for your loss. That it's a crazy world that we're living in, and that's why every time I sign off on these, I always say, like, everybody just be good to each other. All right, just be good to each other. Don't be dicks. All right. So with that, you know, thoughts and prayers, condolences to you all. Till the next time, that was Movie Chewsday. Now is just another day.
And it was just another day. Yeah. Just another day.
Until it went to the movies. Now it's a movie Chewsday.
A movie Chewsday. Until a movie Chewsday.